and all the information.
Oh, it's only a pleasure. I'm really excited to have this. We'll start off in about 2 minutes while we wait for everybody slowly to trickle in. So make yourself comfortable.
Very good.
And I'll let you know as soon as we start.
So 15 WhatsApp exchanges. So I wasn't able to read them. So in case I missed something important, Mark, please.
It's too late now.
Too late now. No, it's okay.
You're there. That's the main thing. You're there. You're on the screen. It's okay.
Good.
So we'll start in about 1 minute. Excellent.
Allô, Marc? Marc, est-ce que tu m'entends?
Bye, Ali, there you go.
Great, I'm going to take a selfie while we're waiting.
Yes. Okay. In 30 seconds, we'll get started and make yourself comfortable.
This is great. Oh, hey, everybody.
Our best side. Okay. Are we all comfortable?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Let's get started. First of all, my name is Marc Bouvron. I'm from the cohort 2004. Just some house rules around using the webinar. It's a new discovery for many of us, particularly for me, but just some house rules. Any questions? There is somebody in the echo. If you don't have, if you could please put on your mute if it's not already done. And in principle, we just have the speaker and the voiceover of our guest speakers. And ideally, the visuals should also only be of our guest speakers to help you concentrate on what we are saying. So that's the house rules. Let's kick off, as we only have 1 hour. And let me start off with some very interesting statistics. First of all, this talk is about IT disrupted, which is a broad definition. But some interesting facts are 58% of all organizations foresee modification to their business models due to IT or artificial intelligence within the next 5 years. That's a Sloan study done in 2018. Another interesting fact is that 33% of millennials believe they won't need a bank at all in the next 5 years. The rise in a shared economy exemplified by Uber and Airbnb are disrupting current business models. And these are disruptions in the IT space. But bear in mind, these changes are also leading to more and more burnout in the workspace, as we are now always expected to be always on in this digital world. Now, why I've shared those statistics with you is to set the pace of how we define IT disrupted in the context of this talk, just to give a bit of a context of what we mean by IT disrupted. Having said that, the mission of today's talk is when the old ways of doing IT business are no longer effective in meeting today's business needs, what do we do? So it is with great pleasure that at the UNPC Business School alumni are hosting this event. We've invited 4 very distinguished guests who are alumni UNPC Business School. members. Thank you very much for all four of you making yourselves available for this discussion. The idea is to be a relaxed, comfortable exchange, and we walk away informed with good knowledge. So with that definition and that introduction, I would like to open up to our guests. Just give us 20 seconds to explain who you are, what you currently do, and then we will move into a question panel session. So let's start off with Karina, if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us who you are, and then we will pass on to Antoine, Mohammed, and then Tawfiq, our guest of honor as well. Karina.
Great. Thanks, Mark. It's a pleasure being here, and I really look forward to the discussion. I bring, I think, in a short summary, I enjoy orchestrating and facilitating innovation and collaboration for international leaders and teams. And I bring that together through research and teaching and academic roles, as well as my international advisory Global Minds Network. And I am a graduate of 97, 98, however you look at it. And so I'm one of the oldies, but I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Antoine.
Yeah, I'm also a graduate of your 97. I'm currently the CEO of an impact fund focusing on deep tech and artificial intelligence. And before that, excessively an investment and tech investment banker, and a private equity professional and hedge fund manager.
Okay.
Now I also teach at NPC, which is a great pleasure.
Thank you. Mohammed?
Thank you, Mark, for organizing this event. Thank you for this invitation. Thank you, Pierre-Yves and the alumni, and I would like also to thank Tawfiq for his presence. And now the victim of Tawfiq Gilati. So I am Mohamed Shihabi. I'm co-founder of Gemstone Digital. In Gemstone Digital, we help companies in their digital transformation and specifically in implementing agility as a capability, strategic capability to deal with all the changes that are going on. I graduated from EMBA in 2009, 2010. Since that, I have been involved in different transformation, business transformation, digital transformations on state-owned companies, but also in other companies like Accor. And I also was founder of a startup during 1 year, but it wasn't a good success. So okay, that's it.
Thank you, Abahada. No necessary introduction, but Tawfiq, please, there are some guests that are not familiar with who you are. We've got a lot of guests on listeners to this event. Maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, Tawfiq.
So I'm currently Professor of Strategy and Technology Management at IMD Business School in Lausanne, Switzerland. I've been here for 5 years now. I used to be for 13 years Professor and Dean at ENPC Business School between 2000 and December 2013. When out of the blue, I was offered to serve as Minister in the post-revolution government of Tunisia in charge of education, research, and technology. So yeah, and I used to be chairman of the board of directors of a large telecom operator. So this is a bit of, I'm a hybrid animal with academic, corporate, and government experiences. It's nice to see you all. And as Mohammed said, some of you were victims of my past teaching, the ENPC, MBA, and EMBA programs. So very nice to be reconnected. I still teach for ENPC, 1 course a year. And the school was kind enough to offer me this title of honorary dean, and I'm still a member of the academic council. So I'm still very much involved.
Thank you.
Nice to see Ali and the Alumni Association and all of you.
Okay, so thank you very much for your brief introductions. Let's dive straight into why we're here. And the idea is to obviously be informed and be inspired around IT disruption. So we have 3 questions for each guest. and each guest will have a chance to make their comments around those questions. But our first question is actually directed to our listeners. You should be able to see a poll button where we invite all our listeners to answer this question, which will be directed to our speakers afterwards, is what is disrupting your business today? Is it the people? When we mean people, is it culture? Is it inclusion? Is it people who are looking for a sense of purpose at work? Or is it IT and artificial intelligence or new technologies? Or is it business models like the Uberization of businesses? So if you could please, while I'm asking this question to you, please just click on your screen and answer the questions to which one of those three do you feel is disrupting your business most today. And while you are clicking through, we will have a look at the results of that question and feed it to our panels. In that space, while our listeners are answering that poll question, I'd like to ask that question to our panel, starting maybe with Katerina. Well, let me see here. Our first question goes to Antoine. What do you think of the results, and what is disrupting your business or your clients today when you're engaging with them? Antoine, maybe you'd like to answer that.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't see the results, so I'll talk about myself, knowing that I've done basically, two kinds of work. And I'll start with the H1 one. IT and AI, for sure, has been a massive disruption, as we've seen more and more data in the trading world, which ideally have to be analyzed immediately in real time, and to be able to spot patterns, and this analysis of sentiment that I'm with whom that I'm helping a startup as a senior advisor, which basically converts it into a trading signal. On the economic model, I've seen some fintechs, trying to basically offer funds at no fee, playing liquidity arbitrage with risk-weighted assets, but this is rather esoteric and does not happen that often. On the people side, people didn't change that much. Activists now call themselves constructive activists. They still do the same and right-size companies. On the impact side of the people I do now, it's completely the opposite. We see the business models being the first one to disrupt everything, because now it's a number of companies are mission-driven, so it's impact first. And instead of coming from a market need that is monetizable, they start from a pain point. And the pain point is directly linked to people, and especially people at the bottom of the pyramid, which are people that are suffering from hunger, from poor health. We see companies showing a lot of empathy, which is fantastic. On the other hand, AI, and I'm going to and IT, I'm going to finish with that. In these categories, innovation are less important, and sometimes there could be some low-tech solutions that work pretty low-tech and low-cost solutions that work very well, especially in the ag-tech sector, in the agricultural space. So the results, do not surprise me in general. Hello?
Sorry, I was on mute. So Mohammed, thanks Antoine for that. Mohammed, your reflections on the results from our audience and the comments from Anton and your experience?
As was said by Antoine, technology is changing every aspect today in the business. But and when I was graduated in 2009, 2010, we used to use some frameworks to analyze the market, to analyze the competition. But today it is very difficult to use those tools because we don't know who are your competitors. We cannot talk today about something like sustainable competitive advantage. We cannot today work trace something like a value chain. You cannot know who is going to make what kind of move to your business. So for me, what I want to share with you is what in this context everything is moving. How should we behave? What makes the difference actually? So in my opinion, I'm going to share with you 3 points. The first point that is making the difference is business must be human-centric. What does it mean? In one side, human-centric means that you need to create a strong connection with your customers. You need to create this empathy with your customers. You need to understand what are the feelings and the behaviors of your customers at the contact with your products and at the contact with your organization. So you need to look at your organization or at your business from the customer perspective. And this is something that is making a huge difference. And corporates today, they are either inside out or either product centric. So they are not able today to have this stickiness with the need of customers. Just one number, 70% of the buying, the purchasing decisions are made by customers based on other customer reviews. So today, even something like marketing tunnel is no more accurate. You cannot rely on your brand awareness to drive this human or this customer centricity. This is something that is changing everything for me. And by the same way, human centricity means also for the organization that you are also employee centric. And that means that you need to empower your employees in a way that they are able to serve your customers. But this is also, this shift is very important because you need to change your mission, you need to change your governance, your decision-making process, your organization, your coordination, the way you are making the work. So we are talking about technology, but for me, what is much more important than technology, if you want to navigate in this market, is your ways of working. And just to finish with the 2 other points very quickly, your ways of your working, you need to be also an organization that is learning very always. So a lot of people are talking about data, for example, but corporates are talking about data in a mystical way. So we are waiting for something to happen, still some serendipity. But this is not the good way of using technology and leveraging data. The good way is that you need to use your data to learn, to make decisions and to act. So making decision, learning and acting, that's very important to navigate in this world, in this very disruptive world, very uncertain world. So my answer is much more in the ways of working, human centricity, learning and acting.
Okay, thank you, Mohammed. It's interesting that you're saying this. I think all our audience have heard this before, but an interesting reflection is, why are we not really doing this? This is interesting. It's a conversation that we hear it, but we are still not getting businesses to do this. Katrina, your opinion and your experience.
So I would build on what both Antoine and Mohammed were saying, and that it goes back to people. I saw it was voted the lowest, had the lowest rating. However, I would definitely give it the top rating because what is happening right now is that we are looking at tech, we're letting tech drive the human development in a sense, and we're in a race on looking at how can we get the next best technology and how are we upgrading technologies, what are we going to apply next. And it's exhausting everyone, leaders, employees, and organizations. And what's happening is that allowing technology to drive human development or focus, we're not necessarily creating the value that's needed for the market or the customers. And so we need to make that mind shift and look at how humans are driving technology development, and looking at a more human-centric view in terms of how technology is developed and the type of value it brings. So more strategic questioning and looking at the actual experience. So we spoke about employee centricity, customer centricity, and it comes down to experience. And you were starting to see that awareness now with some organizations. We have to pay more attention to employee experience within the organization, and looking at how we drive a good culture and ensure that employees are motivated to develop value and innovate. The same thing goes for customers. How are we creating that customer experience, and looking at how our customers will become loyal or will have a positive relationship with them. So I would shift that argument and say, let's start with the human-centric view.
Thank you. Thank you. Tawfiq, your opinion, anything to add to what hasn't been said already?
Well, let's say briefly, now I think we all recognize we are in this digital disruption or digitally disrupted business environment. So we hear every day, and this is not only, of course, about companies that rely on information and knowledge. It started that way, maybe the banks and the consultancies and the like. But today, one of the examples that I have been working on, one of my clients, it's a mining company. If you are a mining company, is digital business transformation at the top of your agenda or not? Maybe many people say, no, it's not. You can use digital to improve processes, efficiency, effectiveness, but it's not key. It's not a matter of life or death. It is today a matter of life and death, even if you are just a mining company and you have a huge world reserves, etc. So this company, Mohammed knows it, it's in Morocco, it's a phosphate company. I have been for 2 years advisor to the CEO of this company. So this is a century-old company in phosphate, state-owned, with 26,000 civil servants. So we say, if you have 85% of the world reserves of phosphates in your country, then you are blessed for 100 more years to come. And then extract the phosphate rock, sell it, make phosphoric acid, sulfuric acid, and fertilizers, and you're, continue with some incremental improvements. So what this company has been doing for now a couple of years, it's to say, well, our business, and I'm back to business model innovation. It's not anymore a B2B business, selling to wholesalers, to suppliers. We should become a B2C business. We should be customer-centric, as some of you said. What does that mean? We should become farmer-centric company. We should reach out to the consumer of our fertilizer, not to the distributor. This is one. Number two, what should be our differentiated value proposition? Customized fertilizers. Because fertilizers are made of 3 key components: nitrogen, phosphoric acid, and potash. Different type of soil, different type of weather, different type of crop and plant and water irrigation requires different mix of these 3 components in fertilizers. So now it's farmer-centric business with personalized fertilizers per farm. They take photos through drones to analyze the soil. Then they plug in the weather information, the irrigation information. They use predictive analytics to come up with the right mix of components for that soil, for that plant, for that weather, etc. And what is the aim? Improve the crop yield per farm in terms of both quantity and quality of the crop.
Okay.
So again, why I'm mentioning this? This is customer centricity. This is innovation. This is agility in execution, led by a CEO vision.
Okay.
Changing the mindset, changing the behavior, hiring now hundreds of agronomists, changing the HR. Back to Karina's point, you cannot put in place this new business model unless you revisit your HR, your skill set, your competencies. So for me, when I say a mining company becoming a digital business, initially I thought this cannot be the case. And I got involved with them. So if a century-old mining company can transform itself and its business model through digital, the way I briefly described it, how about your businesses? How about your companies, etc.? So again, it's a totally new world.
Yes, which is all interesting. We're all converging on the same thing and saying it's about people. So, which leads us nicely into the second question, which I'll ask Mohammed to answer, to start answering, is, okay, so we know that we are changing and we're in transformation, but what do we as people have to do? What are the biggest resistance? Why don't people change quickly? What is holding them back? And what must we do personally? And how can we help other people change if this is so important, as Tawfiq says, life and death? Mm-hmm. So Mohammed, maybe you can lead into this.
Today, in corporate, we have about 30% of employees that are engaged. 70% are not engaged. And this is due to several aspects. We are missing, really the organizations are no more accurate today with this new world. To answer to this question from an IT perspective, IT has been seen so far as a back office function. So the goal was to build some monolithic applications with bundles of services and features and to support business process. And this is still something that could be valid, but there is a huge change. Today, I don't think that sales or marketing or product development are more responsible of business development than others. So IT need to be also considered as a business partner. And this is something very important. This is a huge change that needs to be addressed within the organization. I'm more talking about corporate in this side. And this is something that we can, so that IT is having a side to the customers. And it is also in the front line with the customers. If we don't have that, if it is still a back office function, we're not going to innovate. The second thing is that the way we were building technologies were not very open. We are not very agile. We were building some very monolithic applications, very difficult to move, very difficult to change, to maintain. Today, we need to build architectures that are easy to design, easy to maintain, easy to change, and that allow this platform economy to integrate in a platform economy, to expose your services to other partners, to get connected with other ecosystems. And that's very important, and to be agile in terms of execution and in terms of building your futures. And the third point for me with IT is IT could be an important driver of efficiency. Especially today, we have really a lot of technology to automate a lot of tasks that are not bringing any value to customers. And we are really lacking all this initiative today. There are a lot of things to do on the corporates, for corporates.
Thank you. Antoine, your vision on what do people have to do? How do we change?
I'm going to take the perspective of the management of a company. I mean, and I would say it's important. Governance is key in many ways, and being an impact guy, I mean, ESG, the G in ESG is obviously very important. So that means knowing yourself, knowing your biases, that knowing one of your team members, and that the team members know what they're good at and when they need some help. Another aspect which is key in the life of an organization regarding HR is basically how to make decisions. Making sure that people are fully aligned, that people have the right incentive, there's no conflict. And I would say, and that applied quite, you know, in my days of trader, but now, you know, as a VC impact investor, basically my role is to spot emerging trends in IT, and basically because it's like being long OTM calls, that means that I have to be very diversified, and so I've got to make a bet on management as a minority shareholder. I spend a lot of time doing reference check, but about how they get along with one another, how they get along with investors, because they are key that they are, you know, the main drivers. And these days, when IT disrupts a lot of things, I mean, basically this has a number of consequences. And in the sense that the positive side is that it could save you a lot of time to do more value-added tasks if you can, or have more leisure time in a different society. But that also means that some people will need retraining. Some people may not, for whatever reason, be able to get retrained. And so the question is, you know, how, you know, what could these people be useful? How could they express, I mean, their talents in the best way for themselves and society? And this is really an open question, and we basically learn when working.
Okay, thank you. Karina, you've had a lot of experience in training people as well. What's your thoughts?
I think that we need to accelerate the focus on training and development. You mentioned an MIT study earlier, and the most recent one now just came out a month or two ago, had looked at or interviewed leaders around the world on their skill sets or their ability, their readiness for the digital era, and only 9% were confident that their organizations really had the skill sets necessary, the leaders within the organization. So it's this is an area that really needs more attention, and especially since we're moving towards an era where it's going to be team-driven and project-driven organizations. You know, more and more we're looking at how to connect within the digital network. How are we driving projects and teams online as well as live and in person? And so this requires a special skill set. And I think there we really need to start focusing on how to develop both soft and hard skills, looking at ways that you can facilitate collaboration and connect with your colleagues, look at critical thinking, problem solving, and doing that in real time as well as online. So we really do need to ramp up, accelerate that focus, because I find that not all training firms, I'm a co-director at the Center for Leadership and Effective Organizations, so we've been looking at this within organizations, and a lot of organizations are looking at the classical stuff, you know, tech training, what do you know about the technologies, and then management, how do you manage people, and so forth. But we really need to move it up a level.
Yes.
And, you know, how do we collaborate, communicate, share knowledge, share ideas, and you know, connect around the world?
Tawfiq, I want to pull this question a little bit more specific to senior executive leaders. What's their level of skill? I mean, you rub shoulders with high-profile leaders. What's their thinking about this?
In terms of digital skills, IT, in terms of digital business transformation?
Yeah, just around their own competence. If you see CEOs and business leaders, where are they at with this kind of need? Are they competent themselves, and what can we do for them?
Obviously, the corporate clients that come to us, I mean, they do have internal competency, but they need help. They need support. They need sometimes, you know, we offer the whole range. So obviously, whether on strategy formulation, whether more on execution issues, or mentoring, updating. They want to see maybe the benchmarks, the wider picture, best practices, and based on our research center output and the like. So they want really to see where the world is going, and quite often they are surprised. They did not maybe imagine the pace of the change and the level of disruptive innovations that are impacting many industries, and how technology is the strategic enabler of the change. So this was maybe a point that Mohammed mentioned earlier. IT is not anymore just a support tool to implement a strategy, but more and more like strategic enabler for value creation and business transformation. And that's exactly what the leadership, board of directors, management teams are busy with. So how can we reinvent ourselves?
Okay.
How can we rethink the value, the market positioning, the business model? And we better do it, we better be among the first to do that.
Okay.
So again, the usual question, if you are not a disruptor or among the disruptors, you may be disrupted. So do you take a proactive stand, or do you wait for others and you react? And of course, time of the essence in these matters.
Yes, which is an interesting and very valuable feedback, which leads us into the third question of, okay, so our audience today is a mix of alumni, current students, and potential future students in the MBA space at the Ponts et Chaussées. We all come from different backgrounds, but what advice or what skills would you tell a future MBA or a current alumni person develop this skill now? Is there something concrete, be it a hard or soft skill, that we could leave this webinar with and say, I better start working on that? If it's not, I'm going to be disrupted and eaten up myself. So to lead us into that, Karina, maybe you can start with that question. What are the hard and soft skills we need now? Not yesterday, now.
It's really what we call the new innovative mindset. So using, a blend of hard and soft skills, so to speak, and especially those that ultimately make us innovative, that are human in terms of critical thinking, looking at problem solving, creativity in terms of inspiration, imagination, ways that we create ideas, ways to initiate. These are all going to drive your career forward, because this is what organizations are looking at in the future. How do we sustain innovation? How do we challenge? How do we think critically? How do you create new ideas? But also, how do you do that with the network, your organizational network? How do you collaborate with others and facilitate that knowledge sharing and those ideas? I think all of those will be very critical, as well as your analytical and decision-making skills.
Thank you. Antoine, you're in the VC space. You're always looking for talent. There is the IT side of the new technology and the hottest thing. But from a people's point of view, when you have somebody in front of you pitching the business, what kind of skills do you say that is necessary?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for me, there are 4 key skills that would apply to a number of people in that industry and others. I mean, the first one is curiosity. You need to realize that you're going to change probably of work several times in your future lifetime. So you've got to adapt and you've got to enjoy doing it. The second one, which is probably in my current job the one that I value most, is decisiveness. So meaning being able to decide quickly. You might change your mind reasonably quickly afterwards as well if something new has come up. You've got to be realized that you made a mistake in the first place. And basically, so there's no back trading. There's no saying, oh, I said we should have done that, but for whatever reason we didn't do that. So one important thing in that matter is to, when you fail, and you're going to fail, is to basically fail fast and pivot when as early as you can, and not, again, I'm repeating it because I believe it's very important, not blame others for your mistake and ask for help. The third point is basically not be afraid to network. Every job, as you move up the ladder, you're going to play a commercial role. And so my advice is work hardly on your LinkedIn profile. You need to have, you know, when you buy 35 or something, have more than 5K contacts, and be able and make sure that you basically nurture this network. And last, it's not a soft skill, but these are values. And honesty and transparency are obviously key. And you know, working for a much larger community. The days of the alpha males and the silverback gorillas are gone, as everybody knows.
Thank you. Interesting. Mohammed, what has inspired you with people that come in front of you looking for careers in IT?
Yeah, there are a lot of skills that are involved in a transformation like this, especially if you want to move your organization to an agile organization. And what I have seen on the agile transformation that lots of companies have performed is that they are not able to create this level of coordination, for example, this network effect that is going to build, that is going to make all the organization working in a way to serve the customer. And this is due to, for me, several things. The first one is that we have a lot of people that are hyper specialized, but they are missing this curiosity, so they can engage with in interesting discussions, and they can challenge other people, and they can also get involved in all aspects, so that we can create this common accountability, common responsibility, common consciousness. This is something that is, even if you want to empower, this is something that is really missing. We need hyper specialization, but we need also something more than that. Also, even if we need hyper specialization, we are not expecting from anyone today to give us solutions, because nobody has a solution. Only the customer can tell you whether something is working or not. So you need to work on the process, and we need some facilitation skills also on that. And working with executives, what I have experienced is that executives work with a lot of consultants, and if you want to make a recipe, you don't just need ingredients. So some consultants are going to tell you need to make a lot of salt. Salt is good, and salt is good. Others, and every consultant is going to give you some ingredients. But we are missing some consultants that are having this big picture, that are able to make this synthesis, that's able to understand this complexity and to go deep in some details. For example, digital is still, you need at some time to develop. You still need to have developers, and you still need to push this code to your production. And this is something that lots of companies are not mastering. This is something we can master very quickly, but few companies are mastering. So we are missing a lot of skills at all levels. And I think in this program, in this EMBA program and MBA program, is giving all these people that are participants have this curiosity. They are able to engage with others in other on different discussions, and also are able to make this synthesis of all what is going on. So that's what I have to say about the skills. So facilitation, lot of curiosity, and also at the executive level, I think we need, we are missing something more that is able to understand more complexity and able to have the big picture.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that a little bit. No. Tawfiq, I'm going to turn the question a little bit, because you have a vision on what are the new modules, the new skills that you anticipate will be necessary to teach future executives? This is something that you be thinking about all the time. You're innovative in your ways of putting putting modules and programs together. What do you think will be the future of the skills to teach tomorrow?
So I think you mentioned soft skills. I think this is paramount, much more important, I think, than the hard skills nowadays. Communication, convincing people, empowering people, motivating people. You know, if you can empower somebody and motivate that person will fly very high. I mean, that person will not wait for instructions coming from the top. The person can become independent, can be himself or herself innovative, creative, but also need to create this space for creativity, for innovation, and help people to think differently, help people to believe in their ideas, to experiment, to explore. All companies are focusing, or most of them, on the day-to-day business, how to manage my business. That's the present. But to what extent do you make space for exploration, for experimentation, for testing ideas, and send the message, don't be afraid to fail. And it's okay to use corporate resources, although there is no ROI at the end of the day. What is the right balance between exploitation and exploration? Today versus the future. And this is at every level, at the individual level, at the team level, at the corporate level. I think we need to find this balance between the present, the exploitation, and the future. Because if a company focuses only on the present, it may not have a future. You need to pave the way for the future. So I think that is something very, very important. But also how to lead in turbulent times. I mean, today we talk about the virus. We are in a high turbulence situation. And even without the virus matter, we are more and more in this VUCA world. If anything, the world is becoming more volatile, more uncertain, more complex, more ambiguous. How to lead, how to manage in the face of this increasing VUCA and chaotic situations, changing markets, changing consumer demands, expectations, and disruptive technologies. I think we need also to maybe train people or to teach people or to show them examples how to make them become more confident that they can successfully manage and lead in the face of increasing turbulence.
Excellent. Very interesting insights, and thank you for that. We're now going into the phase of our webinar where we're opening up questions to our audience, and we invite anybody, if they have any questions, to ask these four highly knowledgeable professionals in the IT disrupted world. A couple of questions that have come through to me earlier on, and I'll answer, and we'll see who wants to answer that first. Is what are the potential challenges to IT disruption that may have a negative impact for organizations? And I'm going to exclude Karina in this first question, but I would love to know the opinion of Mohammed. IT disruption, what about its negative sides? Is there a negative side to it? Have you had experience where IT has been disrupting your business and it's had a negative impact?
On your own organization?
Yes.
Yeah, if you are able to create small teams, empowered teams, multifunction that are able to take initiatives with autonomy and learn, and making this balance that Professor Jelassi talked about between exploration and exploitation, I don't see anything that could be negative in this. Everything is positive in this. The only issue that lots of organizations are having today is the ability to get to that level. There are a lot of traps. So even when we talk about, for example, some change in the mindset or change in the organization, I have experienced some changes on the organization when we move it to layers, but the decision become more centralized, more the teams were less involved on the ideation process and less involved on the ideas to incubate throughout the organization. So there are a lot of what is happening today. I have 2 or 3 examples in an insurance company and a hotel company. That we are really it is really very difficult to make that happen, and especially to make a company that is going agile, to make it working at a scaling to scale it. So we have today some experiences on that, and we can deal with that. But I don't see anyway in this process. It is we need to learn in this process. I don't see anything negative. I see just lots of things positive. What I like most is the ability to empower people. That's really very important, because innovation will come from people that are in contact with your customers, and that will never come from your executives. So managers and executives will need to let people work. So that's very empowering. Today, as I mentioned, 30% of employees are not engaged. That's a catastrophe. That's something that's, 70% of your employees are not working for you, are working against you. That's something we cannot, that's not, that's no sense.
Yes, yes. Thank you. And Antoine, I've got a question for you, which has come through, is we all speak about IT for good. Okay. There is IT for good and IT for profit. Can you share a little bit about your thoughts between those two, because they seem quite conflicting, or are they the same thing?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, if I may just come back to the last question, if I may for 1 second, I could think of cybersecurity and fake news as potential things that could affect your company. Coming back to the current question with what it is called is tech for good, tech for impact, and IT for money. Again, I mean, IT and it has been changing for quite some time, but in the eyes of some people, it's a cost center. In terms of tech for good, I mean, now when you speak to VCs, they say, well, everything we do is tech for good. When you look at all the business plans that come from millennials, they only want to save the planet and the poor and the unhealthy. So, but then comes the question of how far do you want to go? Because in impact, I mean, there are 2 categories. The first one is impact first, where basically, as it says, you got 2 parameters and you optimize one. And it may be that your returns are going to be from 0 to 5% or slightly negative. And the other one is standard private equity returns. And sometimes, so that means that there's a difference in how you in the kind of companies that you select for obvious reasons, but also how you monitor them and how you exit. Because if you in bed with another VC with a different view, and your company that basically helps handicapped people, is late in its business plan, are you going to close it down and get your cash back? Or are you going to let it go for a few years and try to see things improving? And likewise, and that has been a case that we looked at, if you invest in an agricultural robot, it's going to save you on using less Roundup, so a CO2 impact. If it's going to be bought by the likes of Bayer, who may want to kill it, would you agree to such a sell? So these are really ethical questions that you need to, you need to have a charter, and you need to have thought about things before they actually happen. Obviously, you may not have thought everything, but we got something in France which is called a clause de retrait, where basically if there's a style drift, and that you ask specifically for the manager, the founder, I mean, to follow the mission that he basically envisioned, and if he changed, I mean, you can ask for him to repay you your investment out of his own money plus a small IRR, and that's a big threat.
Okay, thanks very much. So we've got some questions coming through which seem to be all more or less the same, hovering around artificial intelligence. Is it overrated, and is there a threat, or is it an opportunity? I'm going to address that question to Karina. Your thoughts about artificial intelligence as overrated, and is it a threat to taking away human jobs?
Interesting. Again, I can, from a human-centric view, and I've spent the last decade at studying multinationals or in the tech sector, very tech-driven, and looking at how, and they're global, they have a multicultural workforce. And for me, the interest is to look at how can organizations better innovate and collaborate these days? Because we have, and the big challenge for them is how to harness that collective wisdom around the world. And right now, organizations are not doing that. And they tend to often ignore the intelligence or the talent or knowledge that's at the local level. If we look at AI in that perspective, there may be ways that AI can be positive in empowering the network through different collaboration methods or empowering communication, being able to translate and allow humans to really have their voices heard, in a sense. So there are ways that AI can be good, but I think that we need to look at as how will it empower human interactions, and what is important to create value for people on the planet. So creating value at the local level. Right now, I think if we look at what's happening is that there's this incredible rush. I mean, I go to Silicon Valley and everything's AI along Highway 101. There's incredible rush to just create everything AI, and everything's being tossed at it. I think what we need to do is step back and look at, okay, what do we want? How do we empower our work as, leaders and teams? And what kind of valuable solutions do we want to create? How do we want to innovate? And how does AI empower that, rather than kind of tossing AI and following it to see where we land? So I think we have to be smarter about looking at AI and truly asking the question, what's important for creating value in terms of what's needed right now on the planet, and also how are we also ensuring that we still continue to develop our own skills in terms of critical thinking and collaboration.
Okay. We're running a little bit tight on time, and I've got a couple of other questions, but I'd like to save one question for all of you, which is very real to all of us at this point in time. We are currently in a significant disrupted experience, unprecedented, never before with this coronavirus. Now, this is disrupting our way of working, and the mere fact that this is a webinar that was supposed to be a face-to-face, and at the last minute we've changed to making it a webinar. But in your last 3 days, with things going all over the place, will things change permanently at an IT level? Do you think that, for example, we are now doing webinars more than we've ever done before? Will this be a permanent change, or will we resort to going back to how we used to do things before the coronavirus? So I'll rephrase the question is, what is going to change forever after this coronavirus in IT space? And it's personal opinion. This is just a off the sleeve question. Do you think things will change permanently at IT, and what do you think it would be? So Tawfik, I'm going to throw this to you. I know it's you haven't had few seconds to prepare for it, but what do you think will change forever at IT?
I think IT will have a major impact. I think the change will stay with us. If I take the business where I am, education and executive education, right now, we decided today to stop offering all face-to-face executive education programs for the next 6 weeks and to start replacing them all with online seminars. This is unprecedented in the 70 plus years of the school. Before we had a blended learning, some online, some face-to-face. Now we are moving 100% to online. So even after the end of the virus crisis, if you go back to normality, I'm sure that we'll have a much more important portfolio of pure online learning experiences offered to customers. So that's what I'm saying, that if I think of my business and many other businesses, I think the impact will stay with us, some of it at least, and digital IT will become a more important part, enabling what we offer, enabling processes, new products, new services. I don't think that we'll go back to the normal way of operating before the coronavirus matter.
Interesting. Mohammed, what do you think will be changing forever and what won't change and we'll just go back from an IT perspective?
That's a very difficult question. For me, maybe just to go back to this decision making, I think with this coronavirus, but also with the climate change, I think that a lot of people are having this impression that we all want to a result, but nobody feels responsible of that. So I think that that's something that is going to make people more involved in all aspects. I hope that this crisis, sanitary crisis, is not going to be something difficult for everyone. But if it is the case, at some time we will need people at the level of the district, of the city, who are going to manage that. So I think that we will have more involvement from people at the local. Still, globalization is something wonderful, what we are having today, for example, on education. But on a lot of things, we will have another way of thinking and deciding, I think.
Okay. Thanks. Antoine, in 10 seconds, and then Karina in 10 seconds, and then we'll wrap up. What do you, Antoine, what do you think will stick and what will go?
Well, I think the supply chain is going to be fully disrupted. I mean, remember, I mean, we had the CEO of Peugeot saying that, you know, with even though he had only 4% of the parts of these cars, I mean, coming from China, he cannot sell, you know, a car without one small piece. So there will be a certain re-centralization in some countries.
Okay, Karina, your final thoughts?
I think that we'll learn to balance both. I think this is really forcing us to learn the online world, but at the same time, we're social beings, right? And so we'll look at how to balance both, to manage collaborating both online and live. And I hope to see you live next time.
Yes.
Have that balance. Have a glass of wine with all of you.
Okay, we've arrived at the hour. We are a little bit over by 2 minutes, but the talk has been incredibly interesting. I'd like to first of all thank you speakers, Karina, Mohammed, Antoine, Tawfiq, of course, for your time. You have voluntarily stepped up to this occasion. You are l'ancien ENPC Business School alumni. We are totally grateful that you have been here. We are proud of you, and we hope to see you in person. I'd also like to thank the ENPC Alumni Board, Ali, who is our president, who has been supporting us and making things happen. I hope to do a lot more of these programs, preferably face-to-face. We believe digital doesn't replace human contact. And on a final note, thanks to our guests and our audience for joining us. we want to, on behalf of the ENPC Business School alumni, wish everybody safety. And in these uncertain times, please act responsibly with others in mind. Be kind and generous, as our speakers have been with us, and we wish to see you very soon. There will be a survey going out. If anybody if you could please give us your feedback to that survey, it would be most appreciated, so that we can do better than what we've done. This was our first attempt. You guys are great. This is a community. This is ENPC. Our mission is to create a sense of belonging, and I think this is our first call. So Ali, you wanted to say something as a president? Is on mute. Ali?
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
We can't hear Ali, unfortunately. Anybody?
Are you hearing me?
No,
Yes.
we can't.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you. Ali?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So I just want to add something. First, thank you for Tawfiq. I just want to add something that, as I am a doctor, the change. We are not the only actor of the change, as you can see now. So the human part and the environmental part should be more considered now. And it's also a good thing that we could now have an awareness about that. And I just want to add that the change is why people do not change, as you said, Mark. My personal view is that we have external pressure like environmental, political issue or other social, economic issue. And also we have internal pressure. What is our desire? That is the most fundamental things that we have to know in our mind, because, you know, our education, our mental stress, and is our real strategy. And business just has not to take our mind. So as you saw, we just had this before, okay, like this, and now we can take it off. And to say my thing is, first you had the pressure of the coronavirus. Second, you had the desire to gather and to communicate. And third, you did the small disruption with a webinar. So we have always to think about the environmental also, that is more and more and will be more and more challenging humanity.
Right. Ali, thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next time. Thanks, Tawfiq. Thanks, Karine. Thanks, Antoine. Thanks, Mohamed.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Right.